Chapter 29, Madman. I went by Tuli and found it deserted. The lords were getting hit hard by the cobras and disciples and were keeping a low profile. They had begun hanging out near Lemoyne and Claremont streets rather than by Tuli. I went by Papo's house, but he wasn't home. His brothers were there watching the Cubs game. It had been a long time since I had watched a baseball game, let alone a Cubs game. I sat down and began to feel very uneasy because of the contrast between the lifestyles of those watching the game and mine. To get rid of this unease, I wanted to get high. I asked Geraldo, Papo's brother, to let me use his bike. After much deliberation, he finally agreed. I took off on the bike and headed toward Cadezi and Armitage. By the time I got to North Avenue, however, my destination became Jenny's house. It had been a long time since I had seen her. I wondered if she would welcome me as she once did. I couldn't think of any reason why she would turn me away. I went there with the confidence that Jenny would be ready and willing to give me some sex. I rode the bike down Western Avenue, past Bloomingdale Street, towards Jenny's house. I rode over the spot where I had been beat into a coma by the Gaylords. They weren't a threat anymore. The Gaylords had just about disappeared with the growth of the Puerto Rican community and the Latino gangs. However, I kept a lookout for the Puerto Rican gang members. You never knew if you could trust the guy who looked like you, sitting next to you, who could be a member of a rival gang. They posed a worse threat than the Gaylords ever did. Thoughts of violence became thoughts of sex as I approached Jenny's house. When I reached my destination, I climbed up into Jenny's window like I always had before. I peeked inside carefully to make sure I wasn't seen. The window was open and Jenny was sitting on her bed watching television. "Hey mi amor, how are you doing?" I whispered. Jenny jumped up, startled, and told me I had scared her. "What the hell are you doing here anyway?" she asked. "I wanted to see you," I responded as I climbed into her room. "Wait, you can't come in. Get out of here," Jenny said. "I came to visit you, and this is how you treat me?" I said as I sat on the windowsill inside the bedroom. "I thought I would always be your one and only," I told Jenny. "You got some nerve," Jenny responded angrily. "You slapped me, remember? I wanted sex." I changed the subject quickly before I lost control. "Hey, where's Lisa and Little Man?" I asked Jenny. "Lisa is living with this guy. She doesn't stay here anymore," Jenny said as she sat on the edge of the bed across from me. "Little Man is locked up for shooting some Gaylord." "Wow, that's too bad," I responded as I walked towards Jenny. I could care less about Little Man or Lisa. My intentions were to get Jenny to receive me like before. I wanted her to forget about our last meeting and become the passionate, sex-loving girl I had came to see. "Stay away from me, please, or leave," Jenny said as I sat next to her. "I missed you, babe. I really have," I said as I tried to kiss her. Jenny turned away and said, "If you must know, I'm pregnant. You better leave." "Yeah, right," I said in laughter as I tried to kiss her again. Jenny put her hand on my face, pushed me away and said, "There'll be no sex, so please leave now." I became upset by Jenny's rejection. I grabbed her and threw her on the bed. I got on top of her, put my hand on her crotch, and began squeezing. "You know you want me. Come on, let's fuck like before," I told Jenny as I forcefully fondled her body. "Get off me, you motherfucker," Jenny yelled. "Get out of here. Get away from me." Jenny continued screaming. I heard footsteps coming toward the room. I rapidly got up and headed for the window. I jumped out and got on the bike as fast as I could. I heard Jenny sobbing and her father asking, "¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? What happened? What happened?" I rolled the bike out of the gangway and onto the street. I heard Jenny's father yell, "Hijo de la gran puta, te voy a matar. Son of a bitch, I'm going to kill you." Yeah, I know my Spanish is messed up. As I rode away, I pedaled as fast as I could non-stop until I reached Cadezi and Armitage. The fact that I was riding through dangerous hoods didn't even cross my mind. At Cadezi and Armitage, everybody was surprised to see me. I immediately looked for something to get me high. Many words were said to me, but I didn't hear any of them. I did not begin to pay attention to anybody until I had downed 2 beers and smoked about 3 joints. Jenny, her father, the violence I had been involved in, it was all forgotten for the time being. It all became just another day. Jenny's rejection surprised me. No doubt she had become pregnant right in her own room while her parents paid attention to who knows what. It never dawned on me that the baby she was carrying could be mine. This was the last time I saw Jenny. Lalo advised me that the police were looking for me. Apparently, the disciples had given them my name and description. I figured Speedy must have been the one who set me out, snitched on me. I told Lalo about seeing Speedy hanging out with the disciples. Lalo said he wasn't surprised because Speedy had cousins who were disciples. Lalo offered to drive me to Maria's apartment so I could get off the street. I accepted the ride, but when I saw Cubana on my way to the car, I changed my mind. Cubana crossed the street to where I was and gave me a hug and a kiss. "Hey Cubana, let me talk to this brother for a minute," Lalo said. Cubana told me not to leave without saying goodbye, kissed me on the cheek and walked away. "Get in the car," Lalo told me. "I don't want to leave yet," I said. "I'll be alright, man. I'm a king, remember?" Lalo was angry. "Get in the fucking car. I ain't taking you nowhere. Just get in." Lalo and I got in his car and drove off. He gave me a clear plastic bag, half full of weed, and told me to roll a joint. I rolled a joint, then another, and another. Not a word was said. Finally, Lalo pulled into an alley and told me to light up a joint. It seemed like we had driven a long way, but we were actually only about a half mile from Cadetsy and Armitage. I lit up a joint, passed it to Lalo, and continued to roll joints. "Don't roll no more," Lalo said. "I'm taking some with me," I answered, and continued rolling. "Look at you, man. You can't even function without that shit," Lalo told me. He took the bag from me, gave me the 6 or 7 joints I had rolled, then began preaching. "Listen up, little bro," Lalo began. "If you need this shit to feel good, then you don't need it." "I don't need it," I answered. "I like it." "Let me drive you home, man. Cubana will always be here waiting for you," Lalo said. "It ain't Cubana," I snapped. "I just don't feel like going home." "Look, you little motherfucker," Lalo continued. "La Hada is looking for you, and you are willing to risk it all for a piece of pussy?" "You're wrong, brother," I answered. "I'm risking it for a damn good piece of pussy." Lalo laughed and said, "You think you're bad and you know everything. See how many good pieces of pussy you're going to get if you're locked up." Lalo turned the car on and drove back to Cadetsy and Armitage. I got out of the car and walked directly over to Cubana. "Amor, my brother, I love you too," I yelled at Lalo as he got ready to go into the clubhouse. Cubana and I took a walk to Humboldt Park. I told her about what had happened with the disciples. She seemed so impressed by how brave I was. Her reaction made me feel good. We sat on the grass and smoked some weed. I told her about my other violent encounters. I even made some stuff up that never happened. It seemed like the more I told her about the violence I was involved in, the more passionate she became. It was dark and we were rolling around in the grass like two dogs in heat, oblivious to anything or anybody around us. Ultimately, we ended up having sex right there in the park. Until that day, I thought Cubana was different from the other girls who hung around with the Latin Kings, but she turned out to be the same. She wasn't a virgin as she had claimed, and although she wasn't too into drugs and alcohol, violent guys were her weakness. This encounter strengthened my view of all women being bitches. I began to believe that all it took to get a woman into bed was lies. As far as I was concerned, women had to admire and please me. I, on the other hand, didn't even have to respect them. To me, Cubana became just what she had been that night, a wild hump in the grass. Our conversations died. My thoughts about her became purely sexual. Humboldt Park became kind of a hotel for us. Each and every time we happened to be there at night, we had sex. Cubana did one thing, however, that nobody else could do. She made me smile. Surprisingly, the war that was underway among all the gangs cooled down for the summer because of police activity. The war didn't cool down soon enough, however. 14 people died and half were reported to be innocent bystanders. Chicago's mayor at the time, Jane Byron, was on television almost daily expressing disgust over the gang violence in the city, threatening to have anyone who resembled a gang member congregating on a corner arrested. The mayor didn't want young Latino men hanging out on any corner, yet I'm sure young white men could congregate anywhere they wanted without being arrested. The mayor even had gang members paint over their own graffiti while police monitored them. A member of the Insane Unknowns was deported to Puerto Rico for being a menace to the city of Chicago. That happened after the chief of the Spanish Cobras was gunned down with his baby in his arms. Within weeks, however, the gang situation was back to normal and flourishing. Worst of all, a hatred had been born between a group of gangs that would wreak havoc on the Puerto Rican neighborhoods for years to come.